Fantastic. Right, got it. Right, so if we look tonight at the theory, again, so it's not going to be as perfect as the other slides where I connected the slides with the actual assignment or the assessment. This is more just going to focus on the core of what you need to do next. The rest of the information's been really collected and already been written up because it's in the previous assessment, or what I call the proposal, and you will look at that in addition to obviously the feedback, and most of that would be transferred onto the slides that you will use for your presentation. This is really when you go out and do your research, use the forms that you've created. I'm talking to the quantitative people now. I will spend a bit of time with the qualitative people next time. So the key to remember that here, it's as much as these slides are here, please remember that Google Forms will give you really, really good tables and graphs once you've finished completing them, and you'll copy those tables and graphs out. And as Mads said, they import wonderfully into Excel. And on top of that, you will look at Paula's little recording. I say little, it's short, but it's incredibly powerful. Paula is very, very impressive. And you can tell her I say that. So when we look at why we need statistics, now this is where we are. Now we are only staying within descriptive statistics. We're not doing inferential statistics. The truth is inferential statistics really required at a slightly higher level. We use the statistics to prove relationships. We use statistics to prove objectivity. We use statistics to show that these relationships actually matter. And yeah, they're mathematical techniques. It shows people that from an objectivity perspective, we have taken bias out of our decisions, and it gives us defensible arguments where you can go and say to people, based on what we've taken from a statistical perspective, this proves to be true. And yeah, it summarizes information, and we use statistics all the time. Government use statistics in terms of, well, we hope, allocating budgets. We have stats essay that provide us stats on unemployment levels. We have a census every so often to see what our numbers are. So stats are everywhere. In terms of research, in particular when you're doing quantitative research, in terms of the positive paradigm, it is where everything starts and finishes ultimately, to make sure that we have something that is valid, something that is defensible, something that is reliable, and something that can be generalizable into other situations and contexts. So what we need to do is we need to obviously then gather data, and that will happen the moment I get your marking done and we get the ethical clearance done. You'll then spend time analyzing the data. The data will be analyzed using the information that you glean from Google Forms, as well as what you have from Paula, and you'll use Excel. Please don't go get SPSS and other bits of software. We only need Excel. I'm pretty sure, Mads, you're pretty good at Excel. How are you on Excel, Whitney? Evelyn, how good are you?
I'm not bad. I'm
not
okay.
Too bad. But remember, yeah, go for it. I think we're all in this together. So again, guys, I want us to jump in and help each other. If you find another nice little measure, if you struggle to work out averages, whatever the case may be, Mads is here to help. I think we're in this together, and I think I like that idea. So when we look at some of the descriptive statistics, We will look at measures of central tendency, and each of those point to certain um, relationships and people's views that essentially will ultimately indicate to us what the averages are. And we'll also look at distribution and dispersion, which will indicate to us how far people have disagreed with each other and the range of results that we get. So in terms of descriptive statistics, it's really nice for us to summarize data. It gives us a range, and then it also gives us the mean, median, and mode. So what you see there could be used for a range of data to be presented. Let's just say that we've used it in that case to present IQ. We know that the average IQ of the human race is a magic 100. If you're on the left-hand side there, we know that you move towards, and I'm going to use the technical term, but you move towards retardation when your IQ is over here and it's 30 and below that, you have extreme levels of retardation. I also think you guys know how we calculate IQ. We take mental age and we divide it by chronological age, and that will give us your IQ. And we did multiply it by 100. My apologies. Here you start to get to genius. Once your IQ gets to 130 and 40, we consider you to be genius. And then obviously above that, you get to the Einsteins and the kind of Bill Clintons of the world. To also just say, the theory is, unless both your parents are geniuses, you're not going to be a genius. I disagree with that. I have very, very bright kids who have very high IQs, and my wife and I are very dumb. So maybe that's just a load of nonsense. So the kinds of things you can consider using, please look at those suggested reports that I've already mentioned. So to work out some of these, mean is the average. So just add the different bits of data together and divide it by the number of data. So you calculate in Excel the average, very simple to do. Median will be the middle value set. So you look at the number of bits of data without counting. I would imagine that we're looking at about 45. And then, guys, central points, the one that appears most often. I'm not going to try and figure it out. You can see which one it is, the mode. So distribution indicates the number of times a particular data value is shown. Google will do this. Google Forms will do this automatically for you. Now, you need to remember that you need to discern what you want to take out. But I think quantitative reports in particular need to be visually very, very stimulating. I think the more visual tables and graphs you can put in, the more valid it makes it look, and it also adds to your descriptions and your discussions. So I quite like that every bit of description be supported by some sort of table or graph. So please remember that these kinds of bits here, I love this, guys. I love that kind of presentation. Standard deviation. So this is obviously how far the values differ from the mean. Again, you can talk about the standard deviation. So the standard deviation in terms of what we get from the less intelligent to the more intelligent, 85 to 114. And you'll also find that the majority of the population will be between an IQ of 85 and an IQ of 114. The moment you go below that, you start looking at levels of retardation, yeah, maybe 85. I mean, 85. And just remember, though, guys, we get different forms of intelligence. So IQ is not the only form of intelligence. It's not a great measure. There are other forms of intelligence, and I'm a great believer that you get sporting intelligence, you get creative intelligence. So this kind of stuff, I'm not a big fan of. But we know that the average, essentially, of IQ is 100, and you'll see it's very nicely placed, except maybe for 1 point between those two. So it's 99.5. 100 is easier to do. Right. So, yeah, have a look at those and how to calculate the variances. I'm not going to go through that, guys. And then, yeah, I know that they won't like us doing this, but I think you two are not normal students. I think you're above and beyond students. So I'm going to ask that we use the correlation coefficient, and that's what Paul has given you there. In terms of calculating the correlation coefficient, we are going to look at relationships here, and we're going to look at the relationship between your two variables. And you'll remember the first thing I said to you, what are the two variables that we're looking at? And both of you have an independent and you have a dependent variable. And you then have scales in terms of each of those variables. You will have your Likert scales, and you'll have your scores in terms of those, and you'll average those scores, and those would then be compared against each other and give us an idea of the correlation. What is nice about that, it shows us whether your null hypothesis has been proved, or whether your hypothesis, your alternate hypothesis has been proved, and you'll see the distribution of correlation. So you're trying to get to a point of indicating, whether it is -1, which is your null hypothesis, or +1, which proves your alternate hypothesis. Have a glance at that. So, yeah, strong negative, strong positive correlation, or no relationship whatsoever. No correlation. Sorry, guys, I spoke rubbish there for a second. No correlation means that your null hypothesis was proven. The others essentially will indicate that the alternate hypothesis was proven. Guys, and probabilities, yeah, this we're not going to worry about. You're not going to look at trying to suggest probabilities, so don't worry about that slide. Let me delete this. We don't need this rubbish. We don't need that rubbish. We don't need this rubbish. No, don't need this rubbish. Don't need this rubbish. No. No, we're not going to try and do this. This is the normal distribution. I don't have a problem with that, the IQ distribution. I'm not going to do that. Sorry, guys. Right, and then hypothesis testing. Yeah, null hypothesis. We said there's no relationship. Alternative hypothesis, there is a relationship. In terms of your hypothesis testing, and that's where Paula is fantastic, you will look at those kinds of hypotheses, and you will look at this, the closer to 1 it is, or -1, the more likely it is that you've proven your alternative hypothesis. So in terms of that, yeah, so you look at relationships, so you have to calculate your mean and then do your comparisons. So yeah, you can see there, record your decision, and then you reject your null hypothesis, and you can see there, and you'll work through it. And I don't want to bog you down with this. I would look at Paula's recording. You'll get a better sense of what is there. As presenting your data, yeah, it's about a visual format. I love this. I don't know whether no, I mean, you submit it electronically. I would present my data in color, guys. We're not printing this out. I would use color for presenting your data. Use these kinds of presentations. There are many ways of presenting your data. I will leave that in your hands. Okay. We'll talk about the detail in terms of your hypotheses, but rather work through Paula's and we'll figure out what the relationships are. It's better to figure that out after we've done the analyses. Okay.